If you cry out this psalm, God will block the work of monitoring spirits. Have you felt it? That unsettling sensation that unseen forces are tracking your every move, not just through physical means, but through spiritual channels you can't quite identify. Dark powers monitoring your prayers, studying your patterns, gathering intelligence to sabotage your destiny at the most critical moments. This spiritual surveillance is more real than most believers understand, operating silently in homes, workplaces, and even sacred spaces. But today, I bring you a divine countermeasure that has been available since ancient times, yet remains underutilized by modern believers. A powerful psalm that, when cried out with genuine faith and understanding, activates heaven's interference system against these monitoring spirits. When you release this sacred text, as I'll show you today, God Himself will jam their frequencies, sever their connections, and dismantle the surveillance networks operating against your life. Can you sense that shift in the atmosphere? Something is breaking loose in your spirit right now. The enemy's monitoring system is about to experience total system failure. Before we continue, subscribe to this channel and drop a comment with your country. I need to see how far this word is traveling and breaking chains across the nations. Type surveillance blocked with your location. This allows me to intercede specifically for breakthrough in your region. What we're confronting today explains why countless believers experience perpetual near misses with their breakthroughs. You worship, you war in prayer, you stand on God's promises, you do everything scripturally correct, yet somehow, right at the threshold of your miracle, unexpected opposition materializes. Relationships suddenly deteriorate, provision mysteriously dries up, health complications appear from nowhere, or mental fog settles in. This isn't random. This is textbook evidence of spiritual monitoring. The adversary has commissioned specialized demonic operatives whose exclusive assignment is reconnaissance and disruption. They don't engage in direct combat. Their mission is intelligence collection. They study your prayer life, track your spiritual progress, analyze your patterns, then transmit detailed reports to ruling principalities who craft precision attacks against your destiny. But Scripture unveils God's counterintelligence blueprint, a divine encryption system that, when activated through a specific psalm, doesn't merely block these monitoring spirits, but permanently blinds them to your movements in the spirit realm. Today, I'm revealing the exact protocol for deploying this spiritual defense grid that will revolutionize your warfare. To grasp the magnitude of what we're unlocking, we must first understand a core spiritual law. The invisible realm operates by divine protocols that override natural laws. Just as gravity governs the physical universe, God has established governing principles in the spiritual dimension. One such principle appears in Deuteronomy 33:27. The eternal God is your refuge, and underneath are the everlasting arms. This isn't religious poetry. It's describing a spiritual reality. There exists a refuge in God's presence that functions as a divine concealment chamber, a supernatural cloaking technology that renders you undetectable to monitoring spirits. The Hebrew word for refuge here is mayon, meaning a habitation, a dwelling place, a secret shelter. This isn't about occasional retreats into prayer. This is about establishing permanent habitation in a place where enemy surveillance systems simply cannot function. But here's the revelation that changes everything. Entrance into this refuge isn't automatic. It requires a specific spiritual activation sequence, a divine access protocol. And that protocol is encoded within Psalm 1-21. Most believers have read Psalm 121 as mere encouragement during difficult seasons. But what if this psalm is actually an advanced spiritual counter-surveillance manual? What if, concealed within its 8 verses, lies the precise activation sequence for entering and maintaining residence in that divine refuge where monitoring spirits are rendered completely powerless? Before we unlock the psalm itself, we must address the essential prerequisite for its effectiveness, the synchronization of your heart and your declarations. Jesus exposed this in Matthew 15:8. These people honor me with their lips, but their hearts are far from me. This disconnect nullifies spiritual weaponry. You must understand, monitoring spirits are specifically programmed to detect inconsistency. They immediately recognize when your words proclaim one reality while your heart embraces another. This misalignment creates spiritual interference that actually amplifies your visibility to enemy surveillance systems. To release the full authority of Psalm 121 against monitoring spirits, your heart must first align with your mouth, This isn't about achieving perfection. It's about establishing authentic agreement. Start by acknowledging any doubt or fear residing in your heart. Expose it through honest confession. Father, I acknowledge the anxiety in my heart. I've been troubled by this sense of being watched, monitored, and targeted by dark forces. I bring this fear before your light. Purify my heart as I prepare to cry out your word. This confession creates congruence between your internal belief system and your external proclamation. It tunes your spirit to the frequency of authentic faith, transforming your prayers from mere words into spiritual power. Now let us examine Psalm 121, not as inspirational literature, but as a spiritual weapon specifically engineered to neutralize monitoring spirits. This psalm, authored by one who understood spiritual warfare at the deepest levels, contains a sequential activation code for entering and establishing yourself in God's refuge, where no monitoring spirit can penetrate. I will lift up my eyes to the hills. From where comes my help? My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. He will not allow your foot to be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. Behold, he who keeps Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. The Lord shall preserve you from all evil. He shall preserve your soul. The Lord shall preserve your going out and your coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. Notice the progression. This psalm begins with a question of source. From where comes my help? Establishes divine origin, reveals constant vigilance, declares comprehensive protection, and concludes with eternal preservation of movement and soul. This is not poetic expression. This is a strategic spiritual activation sequence that, when released with faith and revelation, creates an impenetrable barrier against monitoring spirits. Let's break down each verse to understand its specific function in blocking spiritual surveillance. I will lift up my eyes to the hills. From where comes my help? This opening declaration is an intentional redirection of focus. Monitoring spirits track where your attention goes. When you lift your eyes beyond natural circumstances and ask this question, you're essentially switching frequencies. You're moving from the bandwidth where monitoring spirits operate to a higher spiritual channel. This question isn't doubt. It's a declaration that your help source is beyond enemy detection range. My help comes from the Lord, who made heaven and earth. This answer establishes divine jurisdiction. By declaring that your help originates from the Creator of all realms, you're making a legal pronouncement in the spirit world about ultimate authority. Monitoring spirits operate within created systems. They cannot override the Creator's authority. When you invoke the Maker of heaven and earth, you're essentially pulling rank that these entities cannot challenge. The phrase heaven and earth is crucial. It means your help comes from the one who governs both visible and invisible realms. No monitoring spirit can intercept help that comes from the source of all existence. He will not allow your foot to be moved. He who keeps you will not slumber. This speaks of divine stabilization and constant vigilance. Monitoring spirits create instability. They look for weak moments, tired seasons, vulnerable times when your guard drops. But this verse declares that God's watchfulness has no off hours, no sleep cycles, no gaps in coverage. The Hebrew word for moved here implies slipping or stumbling. When God prevents your foot from being moved, He's securing your spiritual footing, so monitoring spirits cannot detect the stumbles they're programmed to exploit. Behold, he who keeps Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. This reinforcement is vital for counter-surveillance. It's declaring that while monitoring spirits work in shifts, report to superiors, and have operational limitations, your keeper has no such constraints. This creates an impossible scenario for enemy surveillance. How do you monitor someone who is being kept by someone who never sleeps, never looks away, never takes a break? This verse essentially announces, the surveillance system watching me never powers down, never needs updating, never experiences system failures. The Lord is your keeper. The Lord is your shade at your right hand. This is direct anti-monitoring technology. The word shade in Hebrew is tzel, which means shadow, defense, protection, but it carries a deeper meaning. It implies covering that makes you invisible to harmful observation. Just as physical shade protects from exposure to burning sunlight, this spiritual shade conceals you from the scorching gaze of monitoring spirits. Your right hand represents your strength, your action, your productivity. When God is shade at your right hand, it means your most productive, most vulnerable, most watched areas are under divine concealment. The sun shall not strike you by day, nor the moon by night. This reveals 24-hour protection against both obvious and hidden attacks. The sun represents visible direct threats, the attacks you can see coming. The moon represents covert, nighttime operations, the surveillance and sabotage that happens in hidden realms. Monitoring spirits often operate under cover of spiritual night, when you're asleep, distracted, or unaware. This verse declares that even in these vulnerable moments, you're protected. Day and night surveillance against you is blocked. The Lord shall preserve you from all evil. He shall preserve your soul. This is comprehensive system protection. The word preserve in Hebrew is shamar, which means to guard, to watch over, to keep with great care. But it also carries the meaning of keeping watch against. God isn't just protecting you. He's actively monitoring the monitors, watching the watchers. The preservation of your soul is critical because monitoring spirits attach their tracking devices to soul wounds, unhealed trauma, bitterness, hidden shame, secret fears. When God preserves your soul, these attachment points are sealed, and their monitoring equipment loses signal. The Lord shall preserve your going out and your coming in from this time forth and even forevermore. This final verse establishes permanent counter-surveillance coverage. Going out and coming in encompasses all your movements, all transitions, all changes, the very things monitoring spirits are assigned to track. But this verse declares that every movement, every transition, every change in your life is under divine preservation. The phrase "from this time forth and even forevermore" means this protection isn't temporary. Once activated through this psalm, it establishes eternal coverage. Monitoring spirits may have tracked you before, but from the moment you cry out this psalm with understanding, their access expires permanently. Now I want you to cry out these declarations with authority. Don't whisper them. Release them with the voice of someone who knows their rights. Speak with conviction. I lift my eyes beyond natural circumstances to the source of my help. My focus is redirected to frequencies monitoring spirits cannot access. Pause. My help comes from the Lord who made heaven and earth. All spiritual surveillance operates under His supreme authority, and I invoke His jurisdiction over my life now. Pause. My spiritual footing is secured by the One who never sleeps. There are no gaps in my protection, no vulnerable moments, no windows of opportunity for monitoring spirits to exploit. Pause. The keeper of my soul never slumbers, never rests, never looks away. While enemy surveillance systems have limitations, my divine protection has none. Pause. The Lord is my shade at my right hand. My most productive, most vulnerable, most watched areas are now concealed under divine covering that monitoring spirits cannot penetrate. Pause. I am protected from both visible and hidden attacks. Day and night surveillance against me is permanently blocked by heavenly decree. Pause. The Lord preserves my soul from all evil. Every attachment point for enemy monitoring devices is sealed. My soul is encrypted under divine security. Pause. My every movement, every transition, every change is under eternal divine preservation. From this moment forward and forevermore, monitoring spirits have lost all access to track my destiny. For the next 24 hours, implement this specific protocol to maximize the psalm's effectiveness against monitoring spirits. First hour. Spend 20 minutes in complete stillness, visualizing yourself entering the divine refuge. Then cry out Psalm 121 slowly, pausing after each verse to let its meaning sink deep into your spirit. Morning. Write Psalm 1-21 on a card and keep it with you. 4 times during the morning, find a quiet moment to cry it out, focusing especially on verse 3 about God never slumbering or sleeping. Midday. During lunch, take time in solitude. As you rest, consciously declare, "The one who keeps me neither slumbers nor sleeps." Monitoring spirits are confused by this constant vigilance. Afternoon. When you sense that unsettling feeling of being watched or tracked, and you will as monitoring spirits realize they're losing access, immediately whisper, "The Lord is my keeper," and visualize divine shade covering you completely. Evening. Before nightfall, stand outside if possible. Look up at the sky and declare, "Neither sun nor moon can strike me. Day and night surveillance is blocked." Night. Before sleep, cry out Psalm 121 one final time. Then pray, "Father, as I rest, you remain vigilant. While I sleep, my going out and coming in are preserved. No monitoring spirit can access my dreams, my subconscious, or gather intelligence while I'm unconscious. This 24-hour activation sequence creates a spiritual recalibration that disrupts established surveillance patterns in the invisible realm. Even one day of this focused protocol will create massive interference in monitoring assignments against you. There comes a dimension in spiritual warfare that separates those who merely believe from those who possess. It's the moment when faith transforms into prophetic gratitude. This is the realm of total victory, a space few enter because it requires seeing with spiritual eyes, while natural eyes see nothing. Prophetic gratitude isn't a response, it's a revelation. It's not gratitude whispered after victory manifests. It's gratitude shouted while the battle still rages. Authentic gratitude isn't polite, it's prophetic. It carries authority because it announces the end from the beginning. It declares, "It is accomplished," while circumstances still scream otherwise. This kind of gratitude is what short-circuits monitoring spirits, those invisible intelligence gatherers that study patterns, analyze weaknesses, and transmit vulnerabilities. They operate through observation, fear, and relentless distraction. But prophetic gratitude disrupts their signal. It saturates your atmosphere with heaven's frequency, and when divine sound fills the space, demonic channels experience total static. This is why you cannot wait until evidence appears. You thank God as though the victory is already complete, because in His realm it is. Gratitude offered before manifestation functions as a spiritual master key. It unlocks every door that doubt or darkness has sealed. When you deploy it, the mechanisms of oppression collapse under the weight of faith. So pause right now, breathe deeply, then speak this slowly, deliberately, like releasing light into the unseen. Father, I thank you that every monitoring spirit assigned to my name, my household, my calling, my finances, my health, my relationships, and my destiny is now blocked, disabled, and permanently reassigned by your decree. I thank you that your divine refuge is now my permanent address. No surveillance, no infiltration, no access granted to enemy forces. I thank you that every intelligence network operating against my destiny has been permanently dismantled. Every whispered report has been silenced. Every file compiled against me has been deleted. Every observation has been obscured by your glory. I thank you that your vigilance is my firewall, and that no shadow can penetrate your light. The instant you declare gratitude with this level of conviction, the spiritual atmosphere shifts. Heaven responds to faith. Hell recoils from sound. When gratitude is spoken prophetically, it releases a frequency that only the spirit realm registers, a vibration that destabilizes demonic operations. Monitoring spirits thrive on fear frequencies. They trace emotional turbulence, anxiety signals, and doubt patterns. But prophetic gratitude confuses their systems. It's like spiritual encryption that scrambles their transmission. The more you give thanks, the less they can track. Every "thank you, Lord" is interference to their signal. Every "I praise you regardless" blinds their surveillance. They cannot process joy in the midst of warfare. It's incompatible with their programming. Gratitude becomes your spiritual cloaking device, making your atmosphere unreadable. When you thank before you see, you're no longer reacting to circumstances, you're commanding them. Gratitude spoken in advance isn't naive, it's strategic warfare. It says, I already know the outcome. Prophetic gratitude also aligns your inner world with heaven's order. Fear contracts the heart, but thankfulness expands it, and a heart enlarged by gratitude becomes too full of light for darkness to inhabit. The soul that praises before the answer arrives sees the answer manifest faster, because faith and gratitude are inseparable partners. They walk together and build altars wherever they tread. Every time you choose gratitude over panic, you prove your alliance with heaven, and heaven always protects its own. Once the interference is cleared and the watchers are dismissed, a new responsibility emerges: maintaining expectation. This isn't anxious waiting, it's confident certainty. It's the posture of someone who knows the door is already open and now simply walks through it. Expectation isn't built on emotion, it's built on identity. You must know who you are and where you dwell. Without these two foundations, your faith will swing between courage and fear. But when you're anchored in identity, peace becomes your default setting. First, your identity as God's kept one. You are not exposed, you are preserved. You are not vulnerable, you are shaded. Someone under divine preservation cannot be monitored by darkness. God's keeping power functions as both guidance and guard. His vigilance is not symbolic. It's a legal instrument of heavenly protection. It establishes a spiritual perimeter around your life. Monitoring spirits may attempt to scan or observe, but they cannot breach that boundary. Your personal data, your thoughts, your emotions, your destiny coordinates, has been encrypted under divine classification. Heaven's security clearance supersedes any demonic intelligence. The moment you cried out this psalm with faith, your location disappeared from enemy maps. Second, your residence in divine preservation. Preservation is not passivity, it's position. It means you're living from victory, not toward it. You no longer glance over your shoulder, wondering who's watching. That hypervigilance, the constant self-monitoring, is itself a frequency of fear, and fear is the only doorway through which monitoring spirits can re-enter. When you rest in God's preservation, you close that door. Rest tells heaven, I trust you completely, and tells hell, access permanently denied. It silences the spiritual noise that once revealed your position. The more you rest in his keeping, the harder it becomes for darkness to locate you. So from this point forward, your stance is simple. I am kept by the Lord who never sleeps, and monitoring spirits are blocked by eternal vigilance. Speak it until it becomes more real than your worries. Let it echo in your thoughts until peace displaces vigilance. When you live from preservation, you transmit heaven's frequency, pure signal that carries no traceable fear. Expectation then is not hoping for victory, it is functioning inside it. You're not preparing for freedom, you're operating from freedom. Every day becomes evidence that the war is already won. You don't wake up to fight, you wake up to enforce what has been secured. For the next 7 days, rise each morning and declare, I am kept by the Lord, permanently dwelling in his refuge, where no monitoring spirit can track, trace, or target my destiny. Say it aloud. Let your environment hear it. Let your spirit register it. Let the atmosphere around you be saturated with the awareness of who you are. Repetition is reinforcement. Every declaration strengthens your spiritual structure. Expectation without identity leads to exhaustion, but identity anchored in gratitude produces stability, and stability invites continuous presence. When you live in prophetic expectation, time bends around obedience. You stop reacting to spiritual attacks and start governing from peace. This is what it means to be kept by the Lord. You don't panic at every disturbance, you recognize frequency, and once you know his frequency, every counterfeit signal becomes obvious. So rest, breathe, stand still in confidence. The enemy cannot trace serenity. Monitoring spirits are confused by joy. Anxiety reveals location, but peace conceals it. You are now operating under divine stealth, the invisible protection of God's eternal vigilance. Expect good things. Expect clarity. Expect open doors. Expect divine communication without interference. Expect angels to handle what once drained your energy. Expect to move through your days as one entirely covered, completely known by heaven, and perfectly guarded. Your gratitude unlocked the door. Your identity keeps it sealed, and your expectation ensures you never return to bondage. You no longer pray from fear, you decree from authority. You are the one whom darkness cannot track, the soul no watcher can observe, the voice that heaven recognizes and hell cannot decode. Live from that truth, walk in that posture, and remember, preservation is not retreat, it's reign. We now seal this spiritual transaction with a covenant declaration. This isn't positive confession, it's establishing a binding spiritual reality that monitoring spirits must respect. Stand if you're able, raise your right hand and speak this covenant declaration with complete authority. I cry out to the Lord, heaven is responding. By the authority of Psalm 121 and the blood of Jesus Christ, I hereby declare that all monitoring spirits previously assigned to surveil my life, family, ministry, finances, health, relationships, and destiny are permanently blocked, blinded, and banned from access. I establish my permanent residence in the divine refuge where God's eternal vigilance renders enemy surveillance systems useless. The Lord is my keeper, and I permanently abide in his preservation where no monitoring spirit can penetrate. From this day forward, I advance in complete spiritual stealth toward my divine destiny. When the enemy attempts to locate me, all their systems will read, preserved by the Most High. So this covenant is sealed by faith, activated by the Word, and enforced by heaven itself. As it is declared, so it is established. Remember, dear one, when God blocks the work of monitoring spirits, what was previously impossible suddenly becomes your new reality. Doors that remained mysteriously locked will now swing open. Opportunities that were somehow always sabotaged will now manifest fully. The breakthroughs that were constantly intercepted will now arrive unhindered. The Lord is truly your keeper, and from this day forward you shall not want for protection against the hidden forces that once monitored your every move. Walk forward in this newfound freedom, this divine covering, this supernatural shield against all spiritual surveillance. You are now truly hidden in plain sight, preserved by the one who neither slumbers nor sleeps.